Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 2nd Newberg City Council meeting. I call this meeting to order. And would everybody stand for, I'm sorry, we need to do the roll call first.
Counselor McBride,
Here.
Counselor Wheatley. Here. Counselor Yarnell Holloman. Here. Counselor Kilberg. Here. Mayor Rosacker.
Here.
Counselor Cloyd. Counselor Carmen.
Here.
Thank you.
Now let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, I had a couple weeks ago, I was walking down Main Street and I noticed at one of our businesses here in town that they had a crew of people out front painting the front of the building. And as I was walking, I thought, what can I do to help reward that kind of behavior? So I talked to the city manager and we decided to do a Hometown Business Excellence Award. We're going to present this to Leo K. in recognition of exemplary updates to their business and to make downtown Newberg more attractive, and to thank them for helping to make our city look its best. I decided to use some city money and buy a few cards, which I will distribute to everybody in the office during the first break, or everybody in the audience during the first break. And I'm going to continue to give these cards out there for $8, which is the cost of one of their wonderful drinks. And I would like to encourage everybody here to please stop by, thank them for being good neighbors and helping our town to look its best. So. Will, it is time for our city manager report.
Thank you, Honourable Mayor and Councillors. I've been told that the clicker is fully powered. Make an entertaining sound effect. Well, boop. Boop. Oh, there we go. Splendid. These are the monthly events for November. Nothing to see here. Okay, engineering. The House Bill 2001 project continues to progress with the first construction phase consisting of segments I-1 and I-4 planned to be advertised in early 2025. The design phase is anticipated to continue through 2025 and possibly beyond for future construction phases for the other segments. All project segments are to be completed by July 2029, and this is a large expenditure in the form of an unfunded mandate which has been placed upon us by the state to replace very good pipes with slightly bigger, very good pipes. Such is life. Public safety. The department was involved in responding to a house fire. The inhabitants had to be evacuated, but one of the kids got stuck in the backyard behind a fence as smoke and fire really started to get out of control. K9 Officer Pilon boosted over the fence, scooped the kids up to get them out of there with the rest of the family. The house was quickly engulfed in flames and a very large amount of damage was done to the property. So I'd like to thank him personally for his quick thinking and his response to that danger. Madison graduated from the Telecommunications Academy at DPSST. Madison was selected as a class leader for her class and represented Newcom 911 and, of course, the entire department very well. Her entire class was given academic honours and she received an overall passing final exam of 94%. Officer Ferguson Carlson delivered their Distinguished Service Award during the OACP banquet on Friday. It was a very nice event and we feel they very much deserved the recognition. And here is a picture of the DPSST and of the Distinguished Service Award. Thank you to all of them for doing us proud. In 2024, The Newberg Dundee Police Department Citizen Academy concluded this week. The 10-week academy was very successful, and it culminated with the students participating in scenarios. They were pushed into making real-life decisions to take that classroom information and apply it to real life. Now, I will mention that my wife did this in Hillsborough and found it to be very illuminating. And so I think it's a very good thing for people to do if they want to know what it's like to walk a few feet in the shoes of a police officer. The students did great, and the instructors had a great time interacting with the students and going through these scenarios. During the academy, students learned use of force rules, taser, traffic stop, speed enforcement, K9, digital forensics, and a case study from the Special Investigation Unit. There were lots of other activities, mostly hands-on. The students were able to operate handheld radar, LiDAR, conduct speed enforcement on Highway 18, all under the watchful eye of a trained police officer. And we'll be back next year with a brand new Citizens Academy, so keep your eyes open for those updates, and we hope other people will choose to do this as an experience. And here is the Citizens Academy graduating class of 2024. Woot. Libraryland. This November, Children's Service team had been very busy visiting every kindergarten in Newberg, Dundee and St. Paul to talk about the library and give kindergartners a free book to keep thanks to the Library Foundation. Building these early connections are important as kindergartners begin that literacy journey. November 23rd, and our all ages cozy reading program began. Folks should come to the library to get the reading log and a chance to win some excellent local gift cards and more. We have reading logs, and we have something for everybody from the babies to the grown-ups. For National Native American Heritage Month, the library has a Native Innovations exhibit from the University of Oregon's Natural and Cultural History Museum. We've had wonderful community feedback on the exhibit, and a member of the Confederated Tribes of Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siskwa Indians came to the library and was very excited to see her heritage represented. On November 19th, the library reduced hours temporarily while we attempt to fill 2 recently opened positions. I usually like to talk about being full-staffed, but we're not full-staffed at the moment. On Tuesday and Wednesday, library hours will have to close slightly earlier at 6 o'clock instead of 8, but we anticipate returning to our regular hours by the end of January after the recruitments are complete. And we're getting lots of applicants for the positions. To end on a bright note, here's a picture of a Lego creation made by 10-year-old Jack called A Romantic Moment. Lego Builders is hosted at the library once a month, and we never know what gems we will see. Public Works Emergency Management. November 9th, 2024, we hosted the County Areas volunteers for the Oregon Fall Set Drill. This is one of the exercises where we get all of our operators together and they practice making communications. These post drills showed successful reach outs to Polk, Marion, Multnomah, Yamhill, Benton, Clackamas, not Washington because they had a conflicting training the same day. In addition, we received inbound traffic from Union, Coos, and Klamath counties. We're very grateful to continue this relationship with these volunteers who are passionate about our Emergency Operations Centre. This benefits not only ourselves, Yamhill County Sheriff's Office, but indeed the whole county in the event of an emergency. And here's another picture of showing that particular exercise. And we're grateful to continue this relationship with these volunteers who are passionate about the EOC. Public Works. The maintenance recently carried out all of these events. Hydrants, water mains flushing, water valves exercised just to make sure that they work. Water meter services, 108. MXU units replaced, new meters installed. Mains flushed 3,020 feet. and many, many other maintenance activities too long to put on one slide. And here are a couple of pictures of some of our most recent repairs. Here are more smashing repairs. And 9th Street Market sewer lateral replacement. And new QR code signs up in our parking lots. As you know, this was one of the things that we were asked about by the Downtown Coalition to make people more aware of where the other parking spots were around downtown. And the QR code takes folks to a map that shows where the other parking lots are if one of them is at capacity. And as you know, they were beautified and striped this summer. Public Works fleet. 45 work orders were completed recently. It was a busy month checking out the police cars before and after the EVOC training that you heard about at the last council meeting. The hopper was replaced on the electric sweeper. I believe that was because the manufacturer sent the wrong one. And with the recent and more steady rainfall we've been receiving, the plant is going through its usual seasonal transition to heavy flows. We also experienced some changes to the process, specifically the nitrification and denitrification within that system. The last couple of weeks, our operators and regulatory staff have been consistently monitoring and making changes to operations to address both of these issues. On top of that, we've continued to operate solids handling aggressively to maintain a good inventory of solids. At this point, everything we have been doing is working, the treatment process is going very well, and our effluent quality remains excellent. The staff should be commended for keeping up with this despite the recent work on replacing the programmable logic controllers. And here is replacing a damaged blower air bypass valve and actuator at the plant. Finance. During the month of November, Finance has continued to work on Operation Quadratic to begin making changes to budget documents to prepare for 2-year budget cycles. We also had the auditors on site for a week to perform the annual audit. A new accounts payable specialist started this month, and we're happy to be fully staffed again in Finance. Lastly, Court has been working on cross-training in the courtroom between the court clerk and court administrator and implementing the red light camera citations, which were set to go live this month. The City Recorder's Office has had a busy month. November has been spent finalising committee recruitments for City standing committees, supporting staff in their work on the new website slated to roll out in February, and moving back to City Hall. In fact, to save money on movers, myself and the admin team were the movers. So we moved all of the sundries, boxes and filing cabinets from all of their remote locations and got them back into City Hall without adding to any extra expense to that mission. Unfortunately, I'm going to report that the counter at City Hall was not cut properly by the contractor and is 1.5 inches wrong in its height compared to what it should be for ADA requirements. This means we will be reopening the counter and rebuilding that section again. We're really hoping that the doors will be open normally on Thursday. We've also been deep in records work and are happy to announce that all building records digitization will be completed this month. IT. This month, your IT department spent lots of time getting ready for and helping the departments with the move back to City Hall. The reason why we did the move in 3 phases of people was to try to limit to some extent the surges of IT help tickets that we knew would be created by each movement. That has been successful. We had great success moving everyone back. The last group that they're going to be helping move is themselves. We also received and installed a new backup server system, and the first full backup of this system was 3 times faster than the old equipment. In addition to significantly more performance and local storage is built into the system, the tapes, and believe it or not, tapes are still modern things in this context. I had to ask Joseph several times, when you say tape, do you mean an actual tape? And he explained to me that there's actually nothing wrong with tapes as a form of backup storage, and it's still a modern and supported technique. So there we go. The new server tape should have ample capacity to suit our needs for at least 5 years based on our current use and on our historical average rate of storage. We also entered into a security service agreement with the Federal Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, which will help us detect and resolve potential vulnerabilities as early as possible. This is a free service provided by the federal government to many local governments, and we're happy to add this to our existing portfolio of security tools and initiatives. We already received several reports from CISA. So far, they have not found any significant security issues. Let me stop for a minute and explain what this really means. They are probing our system to see if they can find open IP addresses or gateways into the system as vulnerabilities. And so that's the advantage of having an outside agency do that before somebody else does it. In planning, some recent highlights. Q1 financials look good. Planning and building are both under budget for expenses, and planning actually exceeded expected permit revenue. We received new applications for a 17-lot subdivision on Northeast Waterfront Street, design review for commercial expansion along 99, and a code adjustment to modify a setback for a resident on North Springbrook Way. We published a notice of funding availability for up to $1 million from the Construction Excise Tax Fund for affordable housing projects, as you are aware. We hosted a public workshop on 11/13 at the library for a conversation about challenges and possible solutions for rent-burdened households. We hosted 2 pre-application meetings for prospective projects, including a new bar restaurant at the First Bank of Newberg building, and I hear it's going to be Western with fried chicken, which I'm very interested in. And the annexation of 2 lots near North College and North Terrace Drive. We attended FEMA information sessions for understanding the regulatory floodplain permitting and monitoring requirements for local jurisdictions. My understanding from Scott is that we will not be heavily impacted by this change. Oregon Planning Procedures training happened at Woodburn. It was attended by the planning commissioners, Faye Bates and Will Worthy, who can no longer claim to have zero Oregon land use knowledge. And Clay typed these words. The opening soon sign is up at the Fairfield Inn. Final inspections are pending. No ETA is known yet. We hosted the first of 3 vacation rental home outreach events. Staff have awarded the honorary gold stars to Councillor McBride and Wheatley for both attending, showing up early, making sure that the staff were assisted to get the workshop going smoothly. Thank you. So that is the list of events for November. As you can see, the residents' tax dollars have been hard at work as usual. Any questions, folks? Not about solids, though.
Thank you, Will. Next is public comments. We've had nobody sign up for public comments, so I'll close public comment. And now it's time for our legislative hearing. So this is now a legislative hearing. It is December 2nd, 2024. We're at the regular council meeting. The purpose of this legislative hearing is to make budget code changes to our municipal code. Katie, it's on you.
So you guys have already had the whole presentation on the biennial budget. This is just cleaning up our code. We're changing any of the wording from annual to biannual so that we can get all of that aligned for the biennial budget. And that's the whole gist of this ordinance on here.
All right, we have no citizen testimony signed up, so I'll close citizen testimony. No recommendation from staff?
Motion to approve ordinance 2024-2928.
Would anybody like to make a motion? Derek?
I move that we approve ordinance 2024-2928 and read by title only, amending the Newberg Municipal Code to reflect the change from an annual budget to a 24-month budget period.
Second.
And waive the second reading. Let's do that first. Okay. Well, I move that we move the second reading for ordinance 2024-2928.
Second.
James, James, is there anything that you would like to add at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing additional from me. Once council votes on waiving the second reading, then feel free to move to adopt and read by title only, please.
All right, so we have a motion to adopt. We have, oh, I'm sorry, we have to do the waive, we have to do that motion first.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to waive the second. Is that what you said?
Yes. Second.
Good job, Derek. Rachel?
Counselor McBride,
Yes.
Counselor Wheatley,
Yes.
Counselor Yarnell Holloman,
Yes.
Counselor Kilburg, Mayor Rosacker, Counselor Cloyd, Counselor Carmen. Thank you.
All right, so now we need another motion. Derek?
Second.
Okay, thank you. In front of council for adoption is ordinance number 2024-2932, an ordinance amending the Newberg Municipal Code to change the annual budget period to a 24-month budget period.
Okay. I guess all we need is a vote. Rachel?
Counselor McBride,
Yes.
Counselor Wheatley,
Yes.
Counselor Yarnell Holloman,
Yes.
Counselor Kilburg,
Yes.
Mayor Rosacker,
Yes?
Counselor Cloyd,
Yes.
Counselor Carmen.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is a media representative for executive session. James, would you like to Will, do you want to take the first stab at this?
First of all, this item is not state mandated. Recommendations. Council may decide to make one of the following motions. It may motion to recognise Rebecca Wallace of Yamhill County News as a member of the press and as such permitted to attend executive sessions in the city of Newberg. Or it may decline to recognise Rebecca Wallace of Yamhill County News as a member of the press and subsequently deny her entry into executive sessions. Executive summary. Rebecca Wallace has applied to be recognised as a member of the press and has requested access to City Council executive sessions. Oregon Government Ethics Commission has declined to provide an opinion on the qualification of Mrs. Wallace as a member of the press, citing ORS 192.660 parenthesis 11. It falls to City Council to evaluate Wallace's application to be recognised. The Attorney General has issued opinion number 8291, which gives guidelines for evaluating a member of the news media. Unfortunately, the legal landscape around the recognition of members of the community as journalists to executive sessions is murky, to say the least. Instead of a firm set of criteria, there exists only a checklist of possible factors that must be weighed to inform a decision. It appears that there is no, and I'm channeling my inner planner here, there is no clear and objective standard within Oregon law to make such a determination. And so it falls to our governing body, the council, to make this decision. Staff, therefore, does not have a recommendation per se. It is a matter for council to debate and weigh based upon the many factors that are listed in that section ORS 192.660. Thank you.
So next, I guess, James, do you want to make comment at this point? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following up with what the city manager has already shared with council as a follow-up to, I want to say at least 2 meetings ago, we did request, as everyone knows, an opinion from the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, OGEC, to get their advice on this particular submission from Ms. Wallace as a proposed news media representative. The Oregon Government Ethics Commission did come back, but they declined to provide an opinion. Their position is that by statute, they are prohibited from issuing rules in determining who is a news media representative. And consequently, they are also prohibited from issuing opinions on the matter. Well, Councilor Yardell Holloman, it was they did take the position that their ability is very narrow, certainly with respect to opining on the topic. So, you know, the city manager and I are both available to answer questions as council deliberates, but I think you have the response from OGEC on the matter included in your materials, and the mayor may seek additional comment from here, but I just wanted to circle back on kind of where things landed with OGEC, and I'm happy to dive further into their response if it's the desire of council.
Allison, you and I had a conversation and I asked you to, if you would make yourself available, but can you enlighten us?
Yes. Good evening, Honourable Mayor, councillors and Newberg residents. For anyone listening, I'm the interim HR manager. The mayor briefed me earlier on the question that lies before you this evening. Please excuse me that I'm looking down at my notes because I obviously prepared a little response. And I just expressed to the mayor some of the worries I have about this. I just want to clarify my worries are not about Mrs. Wallace as a journalist. My worries are about, my understanding, if I'm correct, is that once opened to journalists, all accredited journalists are now entitled to go to the sessions. Is that correct? The executive sessions. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a case-by-case review as far as.
But it
this.
would open a precedence.
Sure, but any decision made on an applicant does create a precedent
Yes.
by council.
So like most people, when asked for an opinion, I have to rely on my own experiences. And my experiences in executive sessions have all been on sensitive personnel matters affecting senior staff. And usually, when a formal allegation or complaint is made about a senior staff person, there's an executive session to inform council and decide on next steps. Usually that involves hiring an outside investigator. Initially, there are no facts, just allegations. This could be a director, the city manager. It could even be one of our officers accused of excessive force. We have no findings. We just have allegations. Okay? And then what happens later is that council can be briefed again on findings and has sometimes happens here in Newberg. That results in a resignation and a settlement agreement. And that settlement agreement usually has a mutual non-disparagement clause that neither party should speak ill of the reputation of the others. Now, please imagine you have 5 or 6 accredited journalists in the executive session. Okay, what if the allegation about the person is released and there are no facts, or later the facts are found not to be substantiated? What if after the settlement, the findings are released and the non-disparagement clause is considered to be breached? Who is on the hook? I think the city could be sued for reputational damage. I think even if we could trace the release of the information, the city would be on the hook to defend itself. And I think we might be on the hook to pay a settlement for the breach of contract. So in HR, you always try to keep sensitive personnel matters as narrow as possible, not just for it's for also the reputation and I think all of us, if we were individuals, would understand that until we've had a chance to even justify the allegations against us, you want this to be in a very narrow scope. So I would just ask that when you consider this, you don't think just about one journalist, but the thought that you could have a lot more than one journalist involved in the investigation of very sensitive personnel issues in the city. Thank you for hearing my worries.
At this time, Becky, would you like to come up and make your statement?
I'm Rebecca Wallace, and first I'd like to address the personnel issues. The Newberg Graphic and the News Register have been attending executive sessions for years and years. And I've been in several executive sessions recently even with the Newberg School Board with personnel issues and the Chehalis Parks and Rec. And the only thing that the ORS prohibits news media from attending is labor negotiations, not the personnel issues. So it may be a worry, but it is not founded in law. So please keep that in mind. So for months, I've been pushing back against the city of Newberg's reluctance to recognize me as a legitimate media representative as the managing editor of Yamhill County News. Yes, it's new. I've encountered barriers rooted in skepticism of my right to report rather than any clear legal or procedural framework. At the heart of this issue lies a disregard for one of the most fundamental rights Americans are born with, the freedom of the press. The First Amendment guarantees every citizen the right to freedom of speech and the press. It does not require a journalism degree. It doesn't require a payroll of salaried employees or the blessing of government officials to exercise that right. Yet the city of Newberg has taken it upon themselves to cast doubt on my legitimacy, portraying Yamhill County News as a mere hobby rather than a platform for real reporting. The upcoming council meeting agenda included tonight a resolution to determine whether I qualify as a representative of the news media allowed to attend executive sessions. The language used in this agenda item is revealing, aside from my name being misspelled yet again, though I did once misspell the city manager's name and I apologize for that. So I'm really sorry. Scottish and Irish, all that, you know. the tone suggests an effort to frame me as an unqualified before the conversation even begins. The agenda outlines selective details of my work and omits crucial context, such as my legally registered media status and the documentation I provided to meet the city's requirements. It reads less like a fact-finding mission and more like a predetermined conclusion that I, and by extension Yamhill County News, don't belong. This isn't the first time the city has shaped its narrative to undermine my news organization. In a request for advice sent to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, the city omitted key details about my application process and our ongoing correspondence. Communications between myself, city manager Will Worthy, and Mayor Bill Rosacker document how the city repeatedly changed its requirements and delayed a decision. By excluding these communications, the city painted an incomplete and biased picture of my work, and their submission also misrepresented my publication, referring to our website articles as posts and characterizing us in terms more appropriate for a social media page. This language deliberately minimizes the role of Yamhill County News as a news source. They even falsely claimed that I own the domain yamhillcountynews.com, a domain I've never purchased or used. These mischaracterizations are not just errors, they reflect an attempt to discredit me and undermine my right to report. The Constitution does not place a litmus test on who can be considered a journalist. Whether I have a team of volunteers, a contracted staff, or salaried employees, my right to report remains protected. The city's insistence on framing me as unqualified to be a journalist not only insults me, but also disregards the principles of a free press. Attorney General Opinion 8291 reinforces this view, reminding governing bodies that representatives of the press should be allowed access to executive sessions unless explicitly exempted under ORS 192.660. The opinion further encourages bodies to err on the side of inclusion, as transparency is a cornerstone of democracy. Journalism is not defined by format, staff size, or tradition. It is defined by the act of informing the public. The city's portrayal of me as a hobby blogger is not just dismissive, it is dangerous. It echoes sentiments that have for years sought to delegitimize emerging media platforms and independent voices. Freedom of the press means all voices have a right to hold power accountable, not just those with the backing of legacy institutions. What the city's resolution seems to ignore is that freedom of the press isn't theirs to grant or withhold, it's a right I already have as an American. By casting me and my work in such a dismissive light, the city is sending a clear message, not just to me, but to all independent journalists. We don't welcome you here. That should alarm everyone in our community, regardless of political leanings. Our newspaper believes in transparent and limited government, principles that align directly with the city's own council goal number 5. Create and maintain a high level of transparency with our residents in order to build trust. Transparency isn't optional. It's a commitment to ensure that residents can engage fully with their government. Yet the city's treatment of me, and by extension my work, undermines that very goal. If transparency and trust truly matter, the city should welcome, not shun, journalists who seek to hold it accountable. We are not there coming to executive sessions to report on what it is you're talking about. We're there simply to make sure that the city council or even any governing body stays on topic of what they have noticed that they are going to be talking about in those sessions. I will not stop exercising my right to report, no matter how the city or some community members attempt to define or diminish my role. My work is not about their approval. It's about ensuring the public has access to information, public meetings, and that government actions are transparent, ensuring executive sessions stay on topic. This is not just my fight. It's about preserving the freedoms guaranteed to all Americans. And I will continue to report, question, and hold power accountable, because this is what a free press does. And I will not allow the city to silence or redefine my work to suit their narrative. And by the way, over in the UK and in Europe, they squash freedom of speech. That's why we have America.
Does anybody have questions for Ms. Wallace?
I have questions.
For the council or for,
I guess, James, we can ask your opinion, your thoughts on this.
I'm happy to provide the legal landscape,
Okay.
and takes on that, as far as the ultimate decision, obviously that is
Then-
council's.
Okay, thank you. Since you are our lawyer, what is your opinion on the legitimacy of Ms. Wallace being a news media representative? What is your opinion?
Well, I think that, as far as the state law is concerned, and I'm expressly or intentionally referencing the state law here because I think one point where Ms. Wallace and I disagree strongly is that this is not at least on the legal merits, this is not a matter of federal constitutional law. This is not a matter of freedom of speech or freedom of the press under the First Amendment. That's preserved. And the Supreme Court has a whole body of case law that says that freedom of the press does not include a right for the press to access information that's not accessible to the public. Those are distinct rights. The constitutional right is separate from the statutory right. And I think that's, there's a case called Brandsburg v. Hayes from the late 70s, and all of its progeny speak to that very directly. But there is a statutory question here, right? And that is whether Ms. Wallace fits the definition of a representative of the news media. And that has been very unclear in how that's defined. I think council has the list of kind of factors or criteria that can consider, and I think that Councilor Wheatley, there are some factors that are clearly satisfied and checked, and there are others that are not. And that's what makes it a really tough call and kind of a borderline submission.
In your opinion, which ones were not satisfied?
Sure. So, I think that we don't, let me take a step back and share this. So when I say we're not satisfied, it's based on the information that was submitted to us. So, us being the city. So the city is able to request information from someone who wants to be recognized as a representative of the news media in order to make a determination on that person's status. The Department of Justice is very clear in their commentary that the city doesn't have to recognize someone as a representative of the news media just because they said they're a representative of the news media. You can ask for information to help make that determination. And so what we don't have or haven't gotten a lot of visibility into is the overall business structure of the of Yamhill County News. There's also a criteria about having the stated purpose of disseminating news. We've looked at the articles of incorporation or the articles of organization that were filed with the Secretary of State. They do not expressly state a purpose. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not stated anywhere. We don't have access to all of the organizational documents for Yamhill County News. So maybe it's in an operating agreement, maybe it's somewhere else, but that's a piece that just isn't, we can't say, yes, that box is clearly checked. Regular publication is another criteria. That one is, there are arguments both ways. I mean, I think, there's certainly a lot of publication. The frequency of it kind of depends on what slice of time you're looking at. So that's one that, is debatable. But clearly, there is an entity, the Yamhill County News. It has been formed. It is validly in existence. There are publications, that are out there. I believe the Yamhill County News has a business license with the city of Newberg. I've seen I have not seen, I understand that there's a Facebook platform as well. I haven't seen that myself, but I've seen the website. There's postings there, and the Department of Justice is very clear that digital publication or electronic publication is, individuals can be representatives of the news media for news media organizations that are exclusively digital in their existence, or their platform is only electronic. It does not have to be kind of the old newspaper format or radio or television.
Can you explain again the, Ms. Wallace is saying this is constitutional and you're saying it's not? Can you just clarify that again, that it's, what she's saying is not necessarily accurate?
Yeah, you know, it's my office's position, that the freedom of the press is a right that is not violated if the city were to decline or reject the access for Ms. Wallace to its executive sessions. That is not a First Amendment violation of freedom of the press. Where the challenge could come to council is a violent, it could be asserted that it's a violation of the statute or the ORS 192, state law 192-660, which allows for news media representatives to attend executive sessions. And I should point out that there's that right to attend executive sessions applies to all executive sessions except for two. One, Ms. Wallace is absolutely correct that there are certain labor negotiations that the news media representatives can be excluded from. And then the second is specific types of litigation where the news media organization is a party to that litigation.
I'm looking at ORS 192.660, section 4, where it says representatives of the news media shall be allowed to attend executive sessions other than those held under subsection 2D of this. It's very vague. Is that what you're saying? Because it just says representatives of the media, that is her, that is what, you know, if we deny her entry, that is what what she could use. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I would anticipate is where the challenge is that express right for news media representatives to attend executive sessions. And so then it begs the question, of course, of who is a news media representative, a representative of the news media. And the DOJ, OGEC, the legislature have all had something to say about it, but in my opinion, nobody has really given a comprehensive, robust definition that can be applied cleanly in all scenarios.
Okay, so then ORS 193.010 talks about who's in the news media. So number 1, a bona fide subscriber. So this is the criteria that a city council would use to determine her worthiness of a news media person? Is this the right ORS that we would look at?
Well, 193 deals with newspaper publications. I think that the challenge here is that council does have to pull from a few different locations to identify the factors that it wants to work through to make a determination. So it's kind of a combination, Councilor Wheatley, of what we can gather from ORS 192. There's a little bit of ORS 193, which deals with newspaper publications, which isn't the whole universe, right? Because there are other forms of media that can fit within the definition. But then also looking at the opinion that Ms. Wallace referenced from the DOJ, they lay out some commentary there as well.
I think the Robin, Counselor Wheatley, the OGEC outlines the state statute that we're pulling from. So all of them are listed there. That's the easiest way, I think, to just take a look.
What page are you referring to?
This one pager outlines all of the sections that we're pulling from to then determine whether we as a body believe that Ms. Wallace qualifies as a representative of the news media, and we're basically just setting precedent because there isn't precedent set.
Yeah.
There's been different decisions at different board levels across the state.
So, Will, do we have a policy or procedure in place if somebody comes to us and says, I'm part of the press, I have a online news segment, for lack of a better word, I can't think about what it would be. Anyway, do we have a policy in place that would address that? If not, I think this body should think about putting something together.
So thank you for the question, Councillor McBride. First of all, I will say in the interests of complete transparency, the people that are following this from home must realise that we're actually in uncharted waters right now because the city does not have a policy. Part of the delays in this process have been us groping our way towards understanding a law which is hard to understand and which is challenging. So we do not have a policy at this time. It would though, and I'm certainly no attorney, it certainly would seem like a challenge to see how to even, frankly, write such a policy because the checklist is nebulous. So if we were to write a policy, it would probably end up being refer to the Ethics Commission and refer to the city attorney for legal opinion, which is what we did. This is not a simple cut and dried, are you 11 miles over the speed limit or are you not type of situation. This is a hard one.
I think if I could just piggyback on that, Councilor McBride, because your question's a good one. The DOJ has also been clear that when it comes to policies, although the city could develop a policy, is ultimately bound to the requirements under state law. And they recognize that state law is unclear here. And so the risk or the challenge is that the city could develop a policy, follow that policy, still get challenged in front of OGAC or the circuit court and lose because there's a finding that it's a violation of state law, even if it complies with the policy. And it's tough to draw a bright line. That's why so many agencies are trying and kind of scratching their heads. It's tough to draw a bright line with some factors that could be included in a policy. And I'm hesitant to advocate for a policy that gets too deep because ultimately it could still get challenged and wouldn't be the covering that the city would want it to be.
I would like to state that I have been involved with you and Will and your office in this since June. And I would submit that the questionnaire that was developed by your firm for the city of Newberg would be the beginning of a policy creation. I mean, we have been trying to create a process by which we judge this and all future applications. Robin?
I was just gonna say that, yeah, basically the same thing. We have the questionnaire that Miller Nash has. So I was gonna ask Becky some questions. Cause I think that, and the questions are basically so we can determine her eligibility. Okay. My question is under number 6. Is your news media organization a publication that qualifies as a newspaper? You do say that you state the ORS, and then you say we publish in English, English language for disseminating news and having bona fide subscribers. I went to your newspaper, but I don't see anything about subscribers. So can you talk a little bit about what system you use, how many you have, how many are paid? Could you describe that?
We are a free newspaper at this point. We do not charge for subscription. We do have subscribers. You can go to the bottom of the website and you can subscribe. You put your email in there and hit subscribe. I will say that the ORS that you're referencing is in regards to if the city government wanted to publish a public notice. That is the definition for a newspaper that's required to fit that ORS if the newspaper wanted to only publish public notices for whatever government wanted to do that. We do not participate in publishing public notices because you have to be a newspaper for 12 months, and because we're new news media, we would not qualify to publish a public notice. So I feel like that should have been at least entered into their information to let them know that the ORS applies only to news agencies or news media that is looking to have a public notice section.
How many subscribers do you have?
Well, we have, if you're looking at our online content, we have about 4,000. If you're looking at the website, we have, it's not just content. I don't think it's just subscribers. I think it's also like views. And in the last 3 months, probably, I want to say we have over 30,000 views that we've had on our website. That's quite a bit. So I feel like that's not really an indicator of, I mean, we have 25,000, how many people we have that live in Newberg, 25,000 people, and that's not everyone's on the internet or uses technology.
Becky, I just have a couple follow-up questions for clarity. I think I didn't hear you correctly. You said some are online and others are at the website. They go to the website. How are those different, or did I hear you wrong?
Those are just different avenues that the publication is advertised to the people. So we have a website, yamconews.com. We have a Twitter or X account. We have an Instagram account, and we also have a Facebook account. So the Facebook account is where people on Facebook and in the community can click on an article, and then they can read the content from Facebook. And then the website is just, they would actually type in the website into their computer and visit it from there.
I lumped those all together as online, so that helps. You also mentioned that the publication or the Yamhill County News is less than a year old, so you wouldn't do the legal notices. But in answering question 10, you said they've been publishing since January 18, but you've been the owner, I think, since June of 2024. So how is it less than 12 months old if they've been publishing since 2018?
My
It's-
ownership is less than 12 months old. My ownership
Right.
of Yamhill County News. Yamhill County News has been around since 2018.
Is that how the age of the publication is determined by every time there's a new owner, it's a new publication, it's a new media?
I wouldn't say that. I'm saying myself as a news media representative, started in June of this year. But Yamhill County News itself has been on social media since 2018.
But not with the website?
Not with the website, no.
So what was the criteria, or what was the process that you went through to be in executive sessions for the school board, park board, and was there somebody else? County commissioners? Okay, so what was the process that they had you go through, or did they not do anything at all?
When I first purchased Yamhill County News, I sent an email to the local governing bodies to give them notice that I would be attending executive sessions. Maybe, if I felt that it would be in the public's interest to make sure that someone was in those executive sessions, then I would attend. The school board, I am in possession of and have the email that they sent to OGEC, and they were told, this is hearsay at this point, but I do have the email that I can provide you. But they were told that it wasn't just a letter in, and I'm not the only local journalist that has been in school board meetings. There's other few new ones that have cropped up that have been in school board meetings. Chehalem Park and Rec, as far as I am aware, the board president sent an email to their attorney, and their legal said, you know, let her attend. The Board of Commissioners, the chair discussed it with their legal, Christian Bonish, I think is how you say his name. And he introduced himself to me and gave me his card and said, if you have any questions or need anything, let me know. But that was a relatively simple process. All of these boards and councils that I have been in, and I have been in executive sessions for all of them, and I've also been in personnel, some tough ones. It's been just a decision by the board themselves, so. That answers your question.
So I think this would be for James. So let's assume we go ahead and we vote and we say, yeah, Ms. Wallace can be in executive sessions. And I think the whole concern perhaps, I'll say the concern that I have, I'm not going to put it on anybody else, would be that what if something comes out of executive session that she talked about, then at that point, could we say, oh, sorry, you crossed the line of what is acceptable and not acceptable, and so you're no longer going to be allowed to be in executive sessions. Can we do that? I would think we could, but you're the expert.
Thank you, Councilor McBride. We can't do that. The guidance that we have to date provides that if representative of the news media who's been admitted to executive session does disclose the contents of that, we can't use that as the sole determinant of excluding that person from future executive sessions.
Can I ask something on top of yours? Here, can I ask a question about? But you could sue them, right?
So we'd have to get into the specific facts on what a claim might look like, Councilor Yarnell Holloman.
Hypothetically.
But under a hypothetical, I can envision some fact patterns where there might be claims, but it's really going to depend on the specific facts of the case.
I'm just saying, any news media, if they were to breach a sensitive matter, are there grounds to then file a claim against the news media for breaking executive session?
Yeah, so there isn't a statutory remedy in the Oregon Public Meetings Law that gives the city a claim directly against a news media representative. Is there a possibility in certain scenarios where there might be other avenues to claims? Maybe, but we're down the rabbit hole on the facts. But nothing in the statute itself, in the Public Meetings Law itself, there is not a remedy.
So I have a possible scenario I'm interested about. If certain information in one of our private executive sessions was divulged and the subject of the session felt that they were liable, that the information divulged put them in a position that they would hold the city liable. Could they hold the city liable? Would they have the choice to hold the news media liable? Well, how is that going to work?
Thank you, Mayor. That's a good question. I mean, if there was confidential information in the city that was released and the city was party to some, non-disparagement provision, let's say, for example, that could create exposure for the city. The subject of that violation, wanted to bring a claim that could create some exposure. Whether that individual would bring a claim against the city or try to bring a claim against the news source, that's gonna vary based on the individual. As someone who defends public entities all the time, I think that it would not be a surprise for the city to get looped in to that, regardless of, who actually did conducted the disclosure of those statements. I think that naturally the way that it works oftentimes, particularly with plaintiff's counsel, is they're going to drag the public entity into it.
You may not know this, but the Board of Commissioners had a major legacy news media breach executive session and actually publish a story in their paper. And they barred them for a year from their executive sessions.
So I'm not familiar with what happened with the Board of Commissioners, but the DOJ guidance is pretty clear. So, I mean, if I represented that news media organization, I would immediately bring that. I would immediately bring that DOJ guidance to the first decision maker that I could to pursue a claim. I mean, they are very straightforward with the inability to bar, but that's helpful. I mean, that is a helpful piece of information, but I think that, the risk is the same, right? The risk is that if we've got disclosures occurring in violation of the instructions that council provided, we kind of have to look at it on a case-by-case remedy to see what remedies may be available, if any, for the city. I don't know if that responds to your question, Councilor Carmen.
Obviously, this is a big deal. Being an executive session, comes with a lot of worry. Legal is the main thing that I'm concerned about, protecting the city. So I want to make sure we do the right thing, but it is apparent. I mean, there's a lot with it. I do have another question for Becky. Number 10, how long has your news media been publishing regularly and without interruption? I saw that you posted a bunch when you bought it in June, and you've published a bunch through October, but you haven't published anything as of November 4th. So, I mean, I kind of use Newberg as an example. I get his every Tuesday. He lists all his subscribers. I don't see you listing your subscribers. You don't post regularly. As a city, we have to do our due diligence. And, that's what we're doing here. Like I said, there's a lot of risk with this. And as an elected person, Allison has expressed risk. I'm here to protect the city and represent citizens at the same time. So if you could answer that. The other thing that I'm concerned about is I think you mentioned that you want to be in our executive sessions to make sure we're doing everything correctly. So you don't trust that James, our lawyer, is making sure we follow, and our city manager and all of us? You don't trust these people?
I don't think that's the point of news media being in executive sessions. It's not about trust. It's about ensuring that government itself not each individual person that is elected, but you all are elected. And because you are all elected, there should be mechanisms to hold elected officials accountable. It shouldn't be looked at as a negative thing. It shouldn't be looked at as something that they're looking to whistle blow or, get you in trouble for something. But certainly, media can attend to ensure that the topic is not strayed from and maybe raise their hand and say, I think you're stepping outside the bounds of the topic. And I have been in sessions where that has happened. And I've been in sessions where it's different with the city of Newberg. You guys have an attorney that's at every meeting and other boards do not. So it's not picking on the city of Newberg only. It's just I have access to pretty much all of them. I went on vacation. We are a small business. And so I have not posted in a bit, but we're going to go back to regularly scheduled postings and news articles that are being published. And I was publishing 4 or 5 articles a week when we were first starting out and being active. And with the holidays and everything going on, I took a vacation, which I think everyone should be entitled to do. But we will continue to publish regularly. We have a number of contributors and we have people that look over the articles besides myself. So, and I don't feel like it's a situation where I need to name out who my staff is in order to qualify as a news media representative.
So what would your process be if we voted to let you in the executive session? You think James or Will or all of us have made a mistake? What is your process? We can, if I understand, we can ask you not to speak about what you saw in executive session, but we have no mechanism of enforcing that. So how are you going to disseminate all our errors?
Okay, so when an executive session is called, there's a disclaimer that the mayor will read that tells the news media in the room that they are not allowed to discuss or disseminate the information that's being discussed that day or in that session. It's a disclaimer. It gets read every single executive session. It's just kind of a reminder that's given to media that would happen to any media that enters your executive session. It's not my duty to report on what it is that you talk about in an executive session at all. That's not why we're there. And the process that I've used in other executive sessions that I've been in that have had some issues is I send an email to the body, the governing body, and I say, hey, I think that this is a violation, and they respond directly to that. It doesn't get elevated. I am the type of person that wants to take care of something at the lowest level possible, which sometimes means that there maybe needs to be some education that happens. There was a violation made at the school board. My process was I made a complaint about that, and out of that came some really good things. They ended up having to take some Oregon Government Ethics Commission training. They took 2 trainings. They were both 2 hours long, and they learned a lot. They learned about the Oregon Public Meeting Law, and then the next session, they learned about Oregon Executive Session Law. And I thought that was very helpful for that government entity to go through. And after they took that training, they stopped really making the mistakes that they were making before. Because it's like the wild, wild west. I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen at government agencies and government boards and councils of mistakes that they don't realize they're making. Like, again, you have an attorney here with you to be in your session, so the chances of you making a mistake are probably very slim. But there's still things that can be corrected, technical errors. I'm not saying that you're gonna violate ethics in any way, but there's technical things that should be complied with, such as the time being put on an agenda or the executive session being named out by topic and not just the ORS with the numbers. That's a requirement, a technical requirement that government agencies are supposed to do.
Some of the questions I feel like we're asking, Ms. Wallace, are our concerns around the press in general entering into executive session. So I want to be really clear that that is already part of state statute to allow the press in. We just haven't experienced that with this council yet of having the press, but I've been in plenty of executive sessions where the press is present. And so I want to try to keep us as focused as we can on Yamhill County News and Ms. Wallace on defining representative of the media, because frankly, it's not her responsibility nor job to answer all the questions we're asking her. It's defined in state statute, in my opinion. So I think we need to define representative of the media and what our comfort level is on, I will tell you, the one piece that I struggle with, but I kind of know where I sit, is the length of operation. So I'll put my cards on the table because I feel like we're not putting them on the table right now. My concern would be that news agencies pop up for a segment of time to bring transparency to a board that that specific entity has concern with, and that they stand up for 3 to 6 months during an election cycle, and then they drop off. I don't think that was the intent behind the definition of the state statute. And I think that that is also, in my opinion, why OGEC is, like they always do, not making an opinion and forcing it back on the local councils. So if I'm going to call a spade, I think this council also is concerned about not you, but other LLCs being formed. And during heated, fun election season time, people coming into executive session when they want to, sharing with their friends, coming back. But I don't want to get distracted by that. I've already been down this rodeo myself, as many in this room remember. And I'm voting yes, let her in. Because the reality is that the press should make us slightly uncomfortable. It's part of transparency. I do believe that we could fight in some way of some claim if we so choose to, if we get in a situation where there's a personnel issue that is disclosed, that then that person comes back and files a claim. I think we can fight that. I would much rather take the risk of allowing a journalist in, getting more clear on defining representative of the media. But I think the precedent has been set in our community. And that's where I stand on this one.
So I.
Thank you. Go ahead,
Can I
Jill.
respond to her? So I am new news media. I am, but I took this venture very seriously. It's not a hobby. It's not a temporary stint. It is a lengthy endeavor. I have owned other businesses in my life. I've owned, farm labor company and an employment agency, and those were lengthy things that required a lot of responsibility. I served in the United States Marine Corps for 9 years, and I held a secret clearance. I am fully capable. My character has a lot of high integrity, and I am fully capable of keeping things secret that need to be kept secret. Personally, if you are to judge the person sitting in front of you by their character, I have a pretty high character, even if people disagree with my politics on things. I do not use my politics in my newspaper. I'm pretty fact-based in the things that I report. If it's opinion-based, it'll say opinion. But I'm not going anywhere. The new news media, I get that there's people that crop up and they want to come in just for a short period of time and they want to use the information they get, but you can't use the information that you receive in executive session anywhere. So I don't feel like that would be or should be a risk because you can't report on it. There was something else I was going to
Unless we break executive session.
unless you what?
Unless we don't follow executive session.
Well,
rules.
even then, that has happened. I will say that that has happened where there's been some sessions where they strayed off topic and they said some things they weren't supposed to say. I didn't report on them.
Well, you
I-
could.
I could, but my integrity just kind of doesn't allow for that. So, I won't. But the other thing is like, I have business insurance. So if someone wanted to sue me, for breaking whatever and libel, or there was a personnel issue and their, personnel file gets leaked or something, which would not come from me. But if they tried to accuse me of that, I have insurance that would cover that in a lawsuit. I'm not afraid of that, because I won't be sharing executive session information.
I would really like to move on soon. Mike, I want to hear what you have to say, but, let's see if we can ask Becky the rest of the questions that we need to ask and move on to this item.
Well, this was kind of for James, and I guess every person that says that they're a news organization would first have to come and ask us for permission to come to an executive session. So is that correct? Because what if there's 2 or 3 other people out there that I've heard of that do stuff online? I don't know if they're a news organization, but if they claim to be, and they came and said, well, we want to start coming to executive sessions, is it still going to be in our court to say yes or no at each invitation from something like that?
So with new submissions, new applicants, those would come to the city. It'd start at the staff level, of course. And they make that request and kind of go through the process from there. I do want to make sure I'm tracking your inquiry, Counselor McBride. When it comes to an individual where there's been a decision to admit them, they don't need to come back to the city for admission to subsequent executive sessions once. Okay, so we're on the same page.
Yeah, I was talking about somebody new out there that comes to the council or comes to Will and goes, hey, I'm a news person, and so I want to be part of the executive sessions when you have them. It still would go kind of through the same process that we're working on now and maybe end up coming to this council for a yes or no vote, I'm assuming.
That's right. That's right, Counselor McBride. This one obviously was elevated to council because it's a complex case. If someone, and I mean, we've had Gary coming from Newberg Graphic for years, but if someone from Newberg Graphic came, it may not get to the point where council's hearing it. But new people, who are looking for that status would need to come to the city first.
Do you have more questions for Becky? Or should we
No.
let her go sit down? Thank you, Becky. All right. So Elise?
Well, just to follow on with what Counselor McBride was saying is, so just to be clear, so if, I don't know the URL, but let's just say Yamhill Advocate. If Yamhill Advocate came and submitted a request, we would follow the same process. Those individuals in that group would submit all the same information that Ms. Wallace did. It would come before council, or it would be determined by city staff.
Yeah, so the first step is it would come into staff. We would ask for completion of the questionnaire so that
Right.
there can be some sort of evaluation process. Whether it gets elevated to council kind of depends on what happens at the staff level.
So how we've been saying that this sets precedent, can you just explain going forward for online only news platforms that are in a similar scenario, which I think there are multiple, would this set the precedent that any other similar type of news agency platforms would now be approved at the city staff level, or would they all continue to come back to city council for approval, I guess is my question.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Yonah Holloman. So with similar cases like this one, we're not at a place where staff would be automatically necessarily approving those. I think that the process for review may continue to be fleshed out because this is uncharted territory, as the city manager explained. But I think with those online platforms, it's such a new space, it would be elevated.
So would somebody like to make a motion? We can finish the discussion after that's done.
There's no number. Okay. Oh, there's no number? Okay. Oh, okay, you want me to? All right. All right, I'll do it. All right, I move that that we move to recognize Rebecca Wallace of Yamhill County News as a member of the press and as such permitted to attend executive sessions of the city of Newberg.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and second that we approve Rebecca Wallace as a media member to attend our executive session. Is there any further discussion? Derek?
For me, I think she's personally satisfied my concerns about whether or not she is media or journalist. The city has asked her to do to fill out questionnaires. She's gone through the process here. We have no real official ruling from OGEC. Other government entities have recognized her as a journalist, so I will be voting to support that.
So my whole feeling was, same as you, Derek. I was trying to get what is the basis of what a journalist is? What is the definition? It doesn't seem like we have a real good definition about that. So, you know, without a firm foundation of that, and I see her being able to go in with the county, the school, and the park and rec, I'm gonna go ahead and vote to allow her, based on that criteria. But I like that we'll be able to have a process in case somebody else comes along, you know, but for right now, that's my reasons on where I'm gonna stand on this.
I've evolved on this issue a lot. When, way back when the three of us were discussing when Yamhill Advocate was at his antics, I think we all agreed that if he would have applied, we thought we had to allow him to come to executive session at the time. I was sure when we started this, that eventually we would all vote to allow Becky to come to our executive sessions. During this process, the first thing was Becky refused to fill out the application. And, all right, then she asked me to submit it to OGEC for an opinion, which we did. And I expected OGEC to come back and say, no, you got to let her in. But that's not what they said. And I am of the belief that they wanted to, that they would, I would have believed that that entity would have said, yeah, she's there. I called you a blogger once. I didn't mean to insult you. I'm not sure what the proper term is for an online only newspaper. I know Becky. We've been friends for 2.5 years. In fact, Becky was one of the reasons that I got elected to be mayor, and I appreciate that. I know that she is a person of integrity, as she stated. I am worried about other people who have online only publications who may use that as an excuse to come to our executive councils and serve their own purposes. I'm afraid that if we allow this application to go through like it is, that we are automatically going to have to approve the other online only newspapers. Or at least them, the ones that have equal to or more positive answers to this. I think that it's in the best interest of the city to resist allowing less than traditional newspapers to take that action, especially as somebody said earlier during election season. This is not about Becky Wallace. This is about the city of Newberg, the citizens of Newberg, and my promise to always try to do the right thing. And in this case, I believe the right thing is to deny her criteria for that. Go ahead.
I think it would be helpful for the sake of the exercise, based on what you just said, to define, because this is the future. Printed is not happening in 10 years. So think about what is missing for you? Because we will need to overcome this. And that we need to be able to, as a council, have our defining criteria when online only news platforms come forward requesting to be a part of executive sessions. I know we can't have a policy maybe, but I would encourage us and challenge us to define the criteria together so that we can say, yes, it meets our threshold for an agency. So if you're not comfortable right now, that's okay, but we need to get there because it's future.
I will tell you the two major deficiencies that I see in this application is A, it's brand new. She hasn't even been in business for a year. And B, she doesn't publish regularly. I mean, it's been 4 weeks since she made I'm sorry. I would think that a longer period of time and more regular service would be two of the things that stand out to me.
Yeah, especially following the conversation about people coming in during election seasons and then disappearing. If we did have a time frame during which this organization has to exist, a minimum of a year. And again, it has nothing to do with Becky Wallace. It's trying to look ahead to avoid some pitfalls that we don't want to fall into. So if we added that to the criteria along with satisfactory answers to all the same questions she answered, I think that would be helpful. And the frequency as well, I think, is important in her case. Maybe she was on a 4-week vacation, but over time, it should be very regular with the number of articles per month or per week or whatever they determine. I think those two would be very reasonable criteria to establish before anybody gets in as a news media rep.
So Peggy, you're suggesting you would say you would vote no until we have a past set of parameters for media. Is that what you're saying?
I think I would vote no tonight, and then we would need to follow up as a council to flush out our criteria, add to it, whatever we decide is important so that we can treat everybody consistently. Becky's, if we decide a year, she's got 6 more months to wait, I believe. But anyway, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I personally, I would agree with that time frame. I think that would eliminate the people who are, who might be, have the wrong reasons for wanting to come to executive session. I think showing that they've been in business for a year would, pretty much negate that, worry on my behalf. Go ahead, Robin.
James, are we legally allowed to set parameters? It's up to the council to set this. We can legally do that.
So the council can set parameters. The risk there is, you know, if it's challenged, we could have a decision maker deciding that our parameters conflict with state law. That's the tension there with the lack of clarity. So, you know, a kind of a duration requirement or existence requirement is something that council could stand up to help its decision making, but it doesn't insulate council from challenges. And it could be proposed a number of different ways. I mean, a pure duration requirement, or maybe that's how you decide whether something is regularly published. You have to have a slice of time that extends for X amount of months or what have you in order to determine that it's regular publishing. This is me off the top of my head in a public meeting, right? But that's the push and pull, if you will, of Councilor Whately on the criteria development.
Thank you. Glenn, do you have any comments that you want to make?
Well, Lisa's correct. It's the future. That's where we're at. I used to work at a newspaper plant and it's a parking lot now. So there's, in my opinion, that if you're published and it's a length of time, now there's a lot of people that go in for just the election times and all like this, but I feel that, you know, with the transparency that I like to see in government, I think it's an evil necessity. So that's my opinion. I would probably vote yes.
Just to go along with what people are saying about duration, you mentioned an organization that's online that based on those parameters being a year, they would qualify. And that's someone you probably wouldn't want to be in executive session. You know, the other thing that I'm having a problem with is, and it's personal, I guess, because I spent some time downtown Portland where people were assaulting police officers and, you know, with one decision by a judge said that these people are press, you cannot push them away. They were able to stay there and continue to assault police officers. And to say that someone that wants to be in executive session to hold us accountable, it's just a little frustrating to me. People have been deemed press for a lot less than what she's asking for and didn't have to jump through all the hoops that she's had to jump through.
So if nobody objects, I would like to call for a question at this time. Rachel, this has to be a voice vote. That's your job.
Of course. Counselor McBride,
Yes.
Counselor Wheatley,
Yes.
Counselor Yarnell Holloman,
Yes.
Counselor Kilberg,
No,
Mayor Rosacker,
No.
Counselor Cloyd,
Yes.
Counselor Carmen.
Yes.
That's 5 yeses, 2 nos.
All right. The motion passes. So the first thing we're going to do is take a short break for the restroom. And then we're going to take a break and have our NURA meeting first and our executive session then will be held after that. So we're on recess.
All right, this is the Newberg Urban Renewal Agency, December 2nd meeting. I call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Counselor McBride,
Here.
Counselor Wheatley,
Here.
Oh, yes, not counselors, board members. There we go. Kilberg,
Here.
Rosacker,
Here.
Cloyd,
Here.
and Carmen.
Here.
Thank you for letting me not say board member every time.
I don't think I said here. Here.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so the first order of business is adoption of the biennial budget. Katie?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we have adopted biannual budget.
I was just gonna say those exact words. So the first resolution, resolution 2024-12. This one is nearly identical to the one that you saw for the city, except this one references NURA for the agency. So it is electing that NURA adopts a biennial budget beginning FY 25-27. And then it's also changing the appointments for the budget committee for NURA from 3-year to 4-year to also align with the biennial budget process. So I didn't figure you guys needed a second presentation on the biennial budget, so that's my whole presentation.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the biannual budget.
Second.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded, I'm guessing adopting resolution number 2024-12. Any other conversation about that? All in favor? Do we need a roll call vote or no? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, resolution passes. And then a bylaws change.
All right, this one, resolution 2024-13. This one is just updating the NURA bylaws to change exactly what we did with the city to any references from annual to biannual. And then yearly to twice per year. And that's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Katie about this? Someone like to make a motion? I will. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Peggy.
I move that we approve the changes to the bylaws for NURA to line up with the biannual budgeting process.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that adopt resolution 2024-13. Did I say 13 last time?
Yep.
Okay, 2024-13. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, resolution passes. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you for saving over 7,200 staff hours per year that can be used for other things.
I don't know that I did that, but thank the staff for doing that. Thank you very much. And their meeting's adjourned.
All right, back to our meeting. So I will now read the announcement required to hold an executive session.
Is it possible to bring up new business before we adjourn?
We're gonna go ahead and have the executive session, then we will come back in and re-adjourn. So we could do it then if. All right. The council will move to a separate meeting room, not open to the public. Once we've concluded the executive portion of this meeting will be opened again in person and on Zoom, and we will resume our open meeting. This time? Okay. Just keep, okay. The city council will now meet in a session for the purpose of considering information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. The executive session is held pursuant to Oregon Revised Statute 192.6602 E and H. A representative of the news media, designated staff, and other persons will be allowed to attend the executive session. No decisions will be made in this executive session. At the end of the executive session, the council will return to open section. We will now terminate this public meeting and begin the executive session. Yeah. All right, let's call this meeting back to order. Peggy, did you want to make a motion?
Thank you for asking. I move to direct the staff, the City of Newberg staff, to negotiate a letter of intent with Wilkett's Realtors.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to ask Will to begin negotiation for a letter of intent. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, that motion passes. Robin, did you have a motion?
Could I discuss it first, or do I just need to come out and? Okay, I would like to make a motion directing staff to update the outline for the public hearing. It seems like there's, oh. Yes. That's all. I would like to move to have staff update the outline for public hearing.
Do we have a second? I will second it. So is there any discussion? Robin?
So it seems like most of our meetings, we get hung up with the second reading thing, like what happened with Derek tonight, every time, and it's never really been explained to me. It's very confusing and it seems to hang us up a lot. And in talking with Rachel about that, she agreed that this outline is not very clear. And also she suggested that, we look, what was it?
It's part of the council rules and guidelines booklet, which is set by council. So if you'd like an update, that's what we need to do.
Yes, it sounds like we need an update to the whole council rules. So, yeah. We need clarification on this, how to properly do the meeting. It's very confusing.
Oh, if there's no more discussion, James?
Mayor, if I could just ask a question on the hearing updates, Councilor Wheatley, are you looking for just legislative or for like quasi judicial and administrative as well? Or should we just take a look at all of it and maybe come back to council with the?
They are all very confusing. The second reading thing, the read by title only, it seems like every meeting we get hung up on that. And it's, yeah, it's difficult to try to make motions.
All right, is there any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, the meeting is adjourned.